Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. And the battle against wokery is being won, one step at a time. This time, NHS Midwives are rejecting the gender-neutral terms chest feeding and birthing parent in favour of the correct terminology, the common sense one, of breastfeeding and mother. Once again, the worm is turning and the wheels are starting to fall off the woke bike. Let's look at this article to find out what's going on and have a discussion about why the wokies are losing, finally. So, midwives sign a letter calling on the NHS bosses to scrap a course that pushes inclusive terms, including chest feeding and birthing parent. The NHS Maternity Gender Inclusion Programme, and you can guarantee anything that sounds anything like that is going to be an ultra-left woke fest of shit, will be rolled out nationwide. The course has a focus on improving maternity care for transgender patients. And the argument that I would have there is, if they're so desperate to be a man, why the hell are they getting pregnant? Because obviously men don't get pregnant. And so it can only be that they don't really want to be men. And since they're not physically men anyway, why do we go through the pretense? But anyway, maternity care advocates and doctors say it is based on flawed research and stupidity and nothing else. Hundreds of doctors and midwives have signed a letter urging the NHS to scrap a £100,000 training programme to encourage use of terms including chest feeding and human milk. The Maternity Gender Inclusion Programme is to be rolled out nationwide with a focus on improving maternity care for pregnant transgender patients. Any man pretending to be a woman can't get pregnant. Any woman who pretends to be a man doesn't really want to be a man if she's getting herself pregnant, because after all, as I say, it's impossible for a man, and so the fact that she's getting pregnant means she knows she's not a man, and therefore we do not need to help her in her delusional state. She needs psychiatric counselling, not the words of bullshit, really. The bullshit terms just to make her feel good. A little dose of psychiatric help will do far more good. But on the other hand, it's offensive to mothers who want to breastfeed and be called mothers and not a birthing parent. Anyway, healthcare professionals have hit out at the proposals, accusing the NHS of ideological capture by the trans lobby, this tiny minority of the mentally ill. They argue that the push for inclusive language, such as birthing parent instead of mother, and milk from the feeding mother or parent instead of breast milk, could alienate other vulnerable patient groups while taking overstretched midwives away from wards. Now, one of the biggest problems in the NHS, and believe me, it has many problems, but one of the big problems is that there are no midwives. They're not being trained. They're not being trained anywhere near sufficient numbers. Those that are there are ageing, retiring. Those who aren't ageing and retiring are walking away because of the stress. The NHS has got a massive midwife problem, and they keep trying to bring them in from foreign countries. But that's only stopgap. Then also what you're doing then is these foreign countries don't have midwives, and you're causing terrible problems abroad. And so, you go to somewhere like the Philippines, say, they haven't got enough midwives now because all the midwives in the Philippines, for example, are coming to England. But then you're also going to have cultural and language difficulties. Why are we not training up enough midwives in this country? Is it ka-ching money? You can bet your bottom dollar it's money. And yet we still have £100 million, 100 million, my arse, £100 billion a year being spent on foreign aid, and yet can't train, 50 midwives, 100 midwives. It's ridiculous. But anyway, we're going to move on from that. They warned the NHS risked harming patients by repeating previous mistakes linked to trans lobbying, such as the Tavistock Clinic's Gender Identity Development Service, which was closed after a damning report. Yesterday, more than 2,000 people, including 297 healthcare professionals, such as doctors, nurses and midwives, as well as hundreds more researchers and non-clinical staff, had signed a petition to withdraw the tender. This shouldn't even be a thing. Anyone who is offended by the term mother is deeply flawed as a human being and should be given zero consideration against the non-use of that word. If they're that vulnerable themselves that they are so psychiatrically triggered by people being called a mother, they need to have very, very serious psychiatric help. The letter, penned by Maternity Care Advocacy Coalition with Women, said the programme was based on flawed research with no clinical evidence. Pregnant trans patients suffered poor outcomes. No such thing as a pregnant trans patient. If she's pregnant, she knows she's a woman, no matter what she dresses as or insists that you call her. The group wrote, recent events at Tavistock have shown how practice underpinned by poor research and the influence of advocacy organisations with a particular flawed and dangerous ideology has led to a scandal that we do not want to see repeated in maternity services. That scandal hasn't broken yet. This is a rolling wave of scandal with Tavistock, and it is still coming up the beach. When this breaks, it is going to be massive, and the NHS is going to be forking out tens, if not hundreds of millions of pounds. It is growing all the time, and the cases are mounting. This is going down to a class action, and the NHS could be possibly bankrupted by it. The NHS contract specifically references the improving trans experiences. Why? Of maternity services. Why? There's no reason why. They can't say why. What they're doing is virtue signalling. Look at us, pay us lots of money. There's no reason for this. Anyway, this is what's happening. So you're getting even people in the NHS saying this is stupid, this is dangerous, and it is not required. But of course, the moment they say anything, you're going to get your lobby groups like Stonewall going, oh, phobies, you're all phobes and ists and well, we can ignore them because they are basically a bunch of child bothering peas and mentally disturbed individuals who really are given far more, so we say, oxygen of publicity than they deserve. Most of them need to be on a register and locked up because they are all down that road. They keep wanting to get into the children, and that's why they love maternity services. You can't get them any younger, can you? Let's get into them the moment they're born. That's what this lot are pushing, and that is why they're so dangerous. But on top of this, the NHS is wanking away. Well, they call it 100,000, but you go, this isn't the only one. Ultimately, the NHS is wanking away millions upon millions of pounds on these left-wing woke wankeries, so that some people can feel good. Unfortunately, people are dying due to lack of care. But hey, it's okay. Some gay people had a picnic, and there's a trans man over there who can look at a little thing on a board and go, oh, it's chest feeding now, is it? Never mind you're burying Granny because there was not a doctor on the ward when she was brought in. But hey, that's the NHS for you. Seriously, guys, go private if you can afford it. Anyway, I'm going to round off and come up. The people who work in the NHS deserve all the praise they can get. They are hard-working and they are under a great deal of stress and strain. And they don't need woke wankers coming in and pushing ideological messaging at every available opportunity. It doesn't help the patients and it doesn't help the poor, overworked people in the NHS. And they don't need the stress of knowing that they could at any time accidentally misgender someone or say something offensive that someone with very delicate snowflake sensibilities finds a little bit offensive and, oh, I'm going to report you. It's all bullshit. If you're in an hospital, you get what you're given and be thankful you've got one. If you don't like what's being served on your plate, find alternative arrangements. Don't like the NHS? Go somewhere else. Don't like that they call it breastfeeding and they call that person a mother? Find somewhere else. Don't moan about it. I've had issues with the NHS. There were systemic issues, not the staff. The staff are marvellous, massively overworked, massively underappreciated, and they could do that 100,000 that they're talking about in this case. That's 2-3 nurses on a ward. Tell you what, everyone would be better off with 3 extra nurses rather than, oh, we're going to do a little bit of an inclusion lesson. Fuck off. Anyway, I'm done. Out of here. If you like what you see and hear on the video, please hit that subscribe button right now, do it now. Ring that bell for future outputs. Leave a like, leave a comment, definitely share the video, and until next time, stay safe, stay well, be thankful that we've still got an NHS, and goodbye.